Let's wait a little. Sim, eu tô só esperando dar 3 aqui mesmo. Alright. Vamos lá, vai. Hello, everyone. We are here again for another Centro Cultural Friday Live webinar. First of all, please, guys, let me know if you can listen us in a very good manner. Please put on the chat if you are listening us. Put yes or okay, please. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, it's okay. People are listening to us. All right. Okay, so I believe we can proceed. Guys, today is a very special day, not because Lucas is presenting to us, but because today is Pizza Day, and it's Friday, so come on. A Pizza Day, Brazilian Pizza Day, it's not international, it's only in Brazil. But a pizza day on a Friday is something that's really invitational. So enjoy your pizzas later. Guys, talking about pizza, what kind of pizza is your preferred, your favorite kind of pizza? I like cheese pizza. But please put on the chat what is your favorite kind of pizza. Let us know. All right. Yeah, I don't eat meat, so yeah, vegetarians have some restrictions with flavors. Okay. All right. Hello. Okay, and you, Lucas, what is your favorite kind of pizza, my man?
My favorite kind of pizza? That's a very tough question to answer. I'm not a vegetarian, but I think I like broccoli pizza or scarola pizza. Yeah, I really dig those kinds of pizzas, right? But
yeah, broccoli.
Yeah,
broccoli too.
I don't like fish, but well, maybe.
Okay.
But there you
Well,
go.
guys, and you guys, let us know. Come on. Isabel is there already. Great, Isabel. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Ana Cristina. Cláudia Duarte. Ana Cristina, I believe Ana Cristina is our former coordinator. So nice to meet you here, Ana.
Miss you,
Okay,
Anna.
guys.
Cool.
Yeah, you know her?
I do know her.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You were there.
The former
Already.
coordinator. Yeah.
She was the coordinator. Okay, guys. So let's get started. We talked about pizza, but pizza is not our issue now. Our issue is art and the Renaissance. So Lucas, it's yours, my man. So enlighten us.
All right. Thank you so much, Claudio. It's a big pleasure to be here with you guys this afternoon, right? Talking about art and this topic, which is maybe not so widespread in our country or elsewhere. But I think it's really interesting when you talk about it because we get to study a little bit about history too. And it's not only talking about, oh, here's blue and there's red and that's all, right? So yeah, it's pretty cool. Pizza is also great. So maybe looking at a piece of artwork, just eating some pizza might be something good. But you have to go to Rome because there is a place where you can do that walking in the street, right? Just you look about you and you see beautiful things. So, and then that's something that is very nice. But all right, now before we get started, just I'd like to thank these people that are helping this live session to take place, namely the coordinator, sorry, Claudio Caccioli, right? Thank you, Claudio. Also teacher Victor Rocchetti, thanks a lot. Teacher Hina, he also helped us creating the leaflet and the poster for the session. Thank you very much. Now, before I get started and we talk about some sculptures and paintings and cathedrals too, right? Because they take part when we think about art and everything. I would like to say that most of this presentation, most of the things I have prepared, I owe to two different sources, right? And it's somehow intertwined. One of these sources is a book, and I recommend it. It's called The History or the Story of Art, The Story of the Art by Ernst Gombrich. So he was an Austrian professor who actually was a emeritus teacher in England, and he wrote this marvelous book many years ago, and it's a really knowledgeable. So I really recommend it. And the other thing that I also recommend here, well, is besides studying art, and actually I in this part I would like to acknowledge my former history of the arts teacher, namely Renato Brolezzi. If there's anyone who studied in Facampi there with me. So Facampi is the university I attended, and I actually am graduating in economy and international relations. That's where I studied story of the arts. And this professor, Renato Brolezzi, was a wonderful person that helped most of the students to understand a little bit more of arts and a little bit more of the history of the world. This teacher unfortunately passed away last year. So, and it was a great loss to the university realm, if I may say that. Okay, very well. Now, you have their Mona Lisa. This is something that probably most of you have already seen, right? And now, in a different way, she's just wearing this mask to help her not to contract coronavirus, COVID-19, and not to, infect other people. So there you go. Wear masks, and if possible, visit museums online. They're pretty cool. Most of them have their collection available, and then you can zoom in, zoom out, and the quality is usually outstanding. So that's really cool. Very good. The art at the Renaissance, right? So what are we talking about, and what about that? The art at the Renaissance was something that was culminated by, a multiplicity of different movements that took place before it, of course, right? And the place where we are going to start is Greece, right? Now, the Greeks are our forefathers, aren't they? So we think a lot like the Greeks. Most of our public institutions are designed after Greek patterns and columns and symmetry and many of these things. So this is one of the reasons why we start with the Greeks, all right? It's because there are forefathers in, and especially speaking, Western civilization related. So we owe a lot to them, related to arts, to architecture, and also related to our way of thinking and poetry and language and words, and that's it. The first piece that we're looking at here, well, this man, Apollo Belvedere, or Apollo Belvedere, del Belvedere, it's a beautiful statue that you find in the Vatican museums, right? So this is in Rome, and you have to go to walk about the museum to find this outstanding piece of art. So in this moment, in this moment of the history of the arts, so we have this person here in the statue. Its face is really plain, and you don't see many expressions on his face, right? So it's just like, he's very maybe calm. It's hard to identify because the Greeks would gather many different parts of our body and place them in one single piece of art. that would be like, this is just a way to gather everything that they would find beautiful, and they would put it in one place. So maybe the eyes that you see there isn't from a single person. Maybe the eyes are from one guy, and the nose is from another, and then the mouth and the lips from another dude, and the hair, and all of these things. Now, a little bit before, people so started sculpting things like these in Greece, right? Sculptures and arts, they would pretty much be motionless. So there's no sense of motion in the statues. It would be just, really, really flat and very symmetrical. And this is not what we see in this period of Greek arts. So one of the arms, one of the Apollo's arms is just raised, right? So he's just holding like a scroll, and there is this drapery that is dangling from his arms there. So in just one arm stretched, wide open, right? And the other arm is just on this regular standing position. So this is one of the things that started happening in these moments of art. There was the representation of a little bit of motion, not too much, right? This is just very, very subtle. One arm is just tension and the other isn't. So there is this balance that the sculptor wanted to convey and to apply and to do in this statue that you see there. So this is really, really outstanding. And another thing that is important for us to bear in mind as we move forward in the presentation in this live session is that this idea that we have copying art, like sometimes we motor men, we'll listen to a piece of music, we'll listen to a song, or you look at a statue or the painting and you say, come on, it's just like a copy, it's nothing new, you have to do something different. There was not something, this was not the standard for those guys, right? So they would, their departure point is something that is called mimesis, right? With mimesis, so that there's a literal copy of art and statue. This is why when we turn to Greece, we're just going to have a brief look. When we turn to Rome, we're just going to have a brief look there, because the Greeks influenced so much the Romans, and they adopted their gods and everything. So this is why when we look at Roman statues or Greek statues, sometimes it's hard to tell them apart, because they would be just the same, right? It's just the same. This statue here is something that you can see. So it's a copy from the 4th century before Christ, right? And it was done so much later, by the Romans, right? So this is the idea. This is the idea that we have with these guys. So, and then the Greeks also observed nature a lot. So this is why you have so many details in the curly hairs, and you can even see the nails in his fingers, right? And so many details in the drapery, and this is just beautiful and outstanding. So, right now, another aspect from statues, specifically speaking, is that we have to, supposedly we wouldn't have to go about the statue, right, as to contemplate it and to realize and see everything that this sculpture wanted to do. But unfortunately, with most of them, we can't do that nowadays. And that's maybe something related to safety. And this is why you can just like see Apollo from up front. This is a little bit different. Moving forward, we have come to the Hellenistic art, right? And then this is the ensuing period related with classical art. Now we come to Hellenistic art, and this is one of the most extravagant moments in the Greek art. So we had Apollo just with one arm raised and the other one was not. With a winged victory of Samothrace, it is a different thing, right? So this is something that is known, the symbol, the token is known to most of us. Why? Because maybe you guys have like a piece of clothing by Nike, and Nike was the goddess of victory, the Greek goddess of victory. And then, so what is the big difference between this statue and the previous one? Well, this one has the wings spread open, right? So this is just very, very dramatic. If you look at the legs of the statue, well, I didn't put the legs of the other one, but the legs of the statue, they're just, you know, going forward, and it's like stepping forward. As you can see, actually, although there is the belly dot here in the statue, right? It seems that it is wearing garments and piece of clothing, doesn't it? So it's very, very dramatic. There is this there is this sense of motion in the whole statue, and this is something that you can see. The winged victory of Samothrace. It was built to celebrate a victory by the Rhodians, right? So this was like a Greek people, and so they were probably at war with their enemies, right? And then it was a naval war. So they built this statue to celebrate this victory against their enemies. What is interesting here is that originally intended, and when the statue was dug, right, it was found on the prow of a ship. So this is also a token celebrating this naval victory and so on. And then this is why you wouldn't have probably visible for people from afar and out at sea, right? Contemplating just seeing this this very impressive statue with the wings wide open. The wingspan is a little bit really wide, right? When you get to see that. This statue is in the Museum of Louvre in Paris, and it is probably the first thing you get to see there. I don't remember. I have already visited this museum, but after a flight of stairs, right, you just see up there, so Nike, the victory. And that's very, very, they probably wanted to cause this impression on us, right? And this was also one of the things that was done in the Hellenistic art period by the Greeks. They wanted to cause an impression on us. This idea is going to be retaken and is going to be put aside many times as we go on in history, right? Notably, one of the movements that comes afterwards, after the Renaissance and so on, was called in Italian muovere affetti. And muovere affetti literally means to move your feelings and so on. So it would cause awe to us. This is awesome. and they really managed to do this one. Now, this is a statue that we can probably see a little bit more going about it, because it's upheld amongst the flight of stairs that you have in this huge museum, which is the Louvre, right? This is an original statue. This was originally sculpted by the Greeks, different from Apollo, which was built and sculpted by the Romans. Yeah, Vatican Museums, Paris, right? Well, I had told you, these guys, we have much of the Romans, right? We have much of these guys. When you visit the city, there is this feeling of, I've seen this before. Yeah, probably studying art, or probably when you looked at something in television, right? When you looked at pillars and they were showing like an institution, the building of an institution, and you can see all that, the columns, right, and the vaults, beautiful vaults, huge vaults, super complicated calculations had to be done in order to have these temples and the arcs and everything, right? And this caused much of a difficulty to people later on, because these calculations were lost, and then they had to study these guys here. We're going to come back in a few moments, but what I would like you guys to notice here, right, is that we have a part of a temple here. So at the Roman Forum, this is right next to the Colosseum. I think that's just all the way in the back here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's just there. In temples in Greece and in Rome, right? So they're so there's a lot of this heritage here, right? You would find these columns, and the temples would be like vast rooms, vast rooms, big places, wide places, and people would just go there and adore their gods. There would be huge Greek statues and so on, right? The Parthenon, by the way, I think some of you guys have already heard of it, is a big and famous temple that we have in Athens. There was a huge statue, a huge golden statue of Athene. Athens was the goddess, right? In this temple, and it's no longer anymore. But people would just go in there and worship a statue and so on, right? Now, this would be just like as a place of it. And why am I mentioning this? Right? Because to get to the Renaissance and so on, I'm just going through the history so that we see where we have come from, and then the things that took place in the Renaissance make sense, right? Now, okay. So thinking about a church, but then we were talking about Rome. Yeah, what about it, Lucas? Can you tell us? Yeah, sure. No, you see, there were Christian. There already were Christians, right, in the ancient Rome and so on. Especially, well, when we start saying AD, right? Oh, should you not know, AD stands for Anno Domini or Anno Domini, right? And there were Christians in this place, but at first it was not a prominent religion there, right? And later on, with Emperor Constantine, it took, right. So he literally, Constantine the First, he adopted Christianism to be one of the religions of the Romans, and these guys worshipped a multiplicity of gods that is hard to name, just like the Greeks. So, and then 500 years later, so 5 centuries ahead in history, right? And after having, so the Roman Empire, so having declines and everything, churches started being built. And one of the first examples that we have of primitive churches, and when I mention here church, I'm not talking about the people of Jesus, but I'm mentioning here the buildings. Okay, this is one of the first examples. So Basilica di Sant'Apollinare in Classe. This is in the city of Ravenna. This is in the north of Italy, right? Why is that important, this information that is in the north of Italy? Well, because it's just closer to the east. It's just closer to Constantinople, right? To Constantinople, actually. It's close to, nowadays, Turkey, right? And then there is a lot of influence from the Byzantine art that, the Italians take from the Romans too, right? But also via that way. And then this is why the city in the north of Italy, which is closer to that area or to that country, is important. This basilica here has something that is noteworthy, right? And one of them is that when Christians needed to gather, right, at churches, so there was not an idea of what this place should look like. So lots, because the way the church would gather, the early Christian church would gather would be at homes, right? So there's the idea of koinonia, the Greek word, and then so here they would just gather together in this place. But you see, there is a lots of columns here. There are the vaults, and the vaults that you could see that were built by the Romans. So it's pretty much the same idea, very, very similar, but then they had to get rid of anything that would be inside of it, or maybe place large benches. But later on, the people could gather here and come together to worship and for maybe to appreciate art, but also to hear the word of God in a way that it could be spoken here. Okay. Now, this is just a heritage from the Romans. Something else that is important in this place, and it's also interesting to pay attention at, and I think I'm going to try to make a huge arrow here, is the ceiling. Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that was important to bear in mind. Maybe people would spend longer here. I don't know. But there had to be a rooftop there, right? Well, you just don't want to see and just gather with your friends under the rain, and then it's hard to to get about this place. So there was the need to have this rooftop here for well, just as a shelter for people and everything. This is important, and we're gonna be back here in a second. I give you Justinian first. Imperatore Giustiniano. So this is a mosaic, right? This isn't a statue. This isn't a painting. This isn't a fresco. And why is that? Well, there's some reasons for this thing. One of the reasons that we have for having a mosaic, well, in later on we're going to have the paintings, is that the just converted Christians, they were accustomed to seeing statues, right? Statues, pagan gods. What do? I just associate these guys with worshiping something that isn't my God, that isn't Jesus, right? So just to have less of a notion that you're, just betraying. It's in the end, of course, it's just stone. There is nobody in there. But here in this case, we're gonna have a painting because it didn't cause such impression in this, well, for the converts of this religion, right, so to speak. And Justinian first was one of the important emperors back then. His face resembles much of that from the Byzantine art, which I had told you, right? And this face also represents a lot of the art that was just before the classical Greek, right? Well, so Apollo was the first one that I showed with respect, but the archaic period, which was before that, faces would be just like a mask. You don't see any, there's no depth in this mosaic, right? And it's just the way it is, like that. So this is one of the ways that they found to do this. These arts had also been mastered by early by early artists in the Roman Empire. So this is what we have here. Now, these little golden shards you see on the mosaic, some of them are golden metals, right? Ooh, so we have jewelry and precious stones. This is what they are. So, and one of the ideas that the church had to do that, so, was that the heavenly realm cannot be represented with earthly things. So just don't care about ink and paint. We're just going to gather golden things and so on, right? And then it might just be a justification to pillage and get gold and these things and precious stones from other parts of the world that were subject to those guys. But okay, so this is very, very primitive, right? And then we are going to move forward and go to to this period of history that precedes the Gothics and so on. Here we have two different representations of pictures related with the church, right? And Lucas, would you mind telling us? I'm just curious here. you showed us like the gods there, and now we're just showing Christian related arts. What is the reason for that? Well, one of the reasons for that is not only because one of the most prominent empires of the world took over, namely the Roman Empire, but also, right, because so just a sec. Oh yeah, because the other because the other buildings and the other kinds of arts, like the kind of arts that you would find inside castles and so on, well, castles were destroyed, right? And it may be hard to visit a castle, like a fortress, a place like this in Europe. We're talking about Europe in this case, and to see the original thing there. So maybe it was destroyed, and we don't know what was left from that. And churches were a little bit more revered, right? So this is one of the reasons that art. So until the Renaissance, even a little bit after that, so it was heavily based on Christian and, well, some other Christian related art. Okay. The first painting that we see here, now the artist is unknown. Artists wouldn't care to place their names there, so they were happier, I don't know, just to get the image presented. On the left side, on your left, so you see Saint Matthew is just maybe writing one of the Gospels, maybe his Gospel, right? Well, probably was that the artist intended to draw here. Now you see, they're not very realistic here. Justinian wasn't very realistic, and what you see here, they aren't very realistic. Neither. And it's really, really because they didn't want to be realistic, right? The first picture, well, the one on the left side, St. Matthew, it's much likely that the author wanted to express the idea that he was just, in a different state. And then you see just the drapery and his garment, his clothes, they're just, just wobbling there. And he holds a feather in his writing, so it's just in a different state. And that's what the painter, this is what he wanted to convey in this case. This is what he wanted to convey in this case. So this is important for us not to consider, right, these artists as, people who lack ability. This is not it. This man here probably could do marvelous things as he did here. I don't really think I could draw that. Could you? And this is why you have in this way, right? Now, when you look at your right side, so you have Christ washing the feet of the apostles, right? So this is another moment that you have from the biblical narrative, yeah? And you see that the figures in the painting, they are kind of, the proportion is just not there. There's no sense of separation between them. There is no room, right? There's just like the faces are just touching each other's faces, and that's it. So if you look at this bowl, this man is just, it's just retrieved water, and he's about to wash St. Peter's feet. You see that this thing here isn't very, very realistic, and it wasn't his intention. His intention was for us to know the text, right? And this is the moment that was portrayed in that. So he wanted to kind of get the words, and to understand that and represent that in the art. Now Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." And Jesus answered, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." This is what the artist wanted to convey here, right? So this is in a book, yeah. This is in the German city of Munich. So this is what you want to understand from this painting. There is nothing encrypted there. You don't have to decipher much. Well, you have to know the text, right? And there maybe are details from the words that are not faithfully, well, transposed to the painting because it may not be possible. Yeah. But this is how medieval art would look like a little bit. Remember the ceiling, guys? Yeah. Dude, look at that ceiling. I don't think that's worthy. It's made of wood. It can catch fire. And then boom, right? How can I go to a place, well, just thinking as one of those guys, how can I go to a place and worship and look above and there is something that is like poor? I have to do something about it, right? And well, 600 years later, in the north, no longer, so this is no longer in Italy, in the north, right? And this is in Paris. It was in the news just before we started the live session, right? We have the beautiful church of Notre Dame de Paris, this cathedral here. And this kind of style is called flamboyant Gothic, right? Now, one of the reasons why this style, and just one that preceded that, I just didn't add this material here, was to make a more beautiful ceiling to the church. What do you mean? What do you want to do? Dude, let's put concrete there. It has to look good. It has to look good, right? But then these churches, they're massive. They're just massive. They're enormous. And how can we do that? And how? Well, in the central figure here, you have the altar of another church. This is not, so Notre Dame, this is Chartres. This is another place in France. And this is what they did. So if you look at the ceiling here, let me just show that. If you look at the ceiling here, right? I couldn't be an architect, dude. It's very hard to do this. But they were vaults, and more specifically speaking, they're rib vaults. So the architects would just cross them out, you know, just as if they were bridges connecting one side to the other, and then that could literally support just the whole weight of the ceiling. So this is one of the things that they did, especially in the Gothic. So they find a way of making these structures and the columns here, right, much more resistant as to have the ceilings. And this is the reason why they were able to build the huge rose windows, as you have King David's portrait on this rose window here, right? And of course, in this moment here, so some statues, they would be placed outside the church just to show what you're about to find inside. And here you have two beautiful statues, right, from Christian literature and from the Bible too. On the left side, you have Abraham, and on the right side, you have Moses. How do you know that? How do you know that? Well, just because these guys would represent them with some tokens, some symbols that would make a reference to the story and to history, right? Abraham has Isaac, his son, whom is about to sacrifice, right? And on the right side, you have Moses holding one of the tables from the 10 Commandments, yeah? And this is why you have one of the tokens. Now, you see, although these guys don't want to refer to to Greek arts and to their notion of pagan gods and those things, you see, look at the statues, look at the drapery, look at the garments. Dudes, they learned that from the Greeks, right? There was not something that was, this kind of knowledge was not put away. So they just wanted to have it, and they understood it. If you look at the statue, it looks like there's a guy, there's a man underneath the cloak, right? Doesn't it? Look at that. Look at the details of the beard. This is magnificent. And this is what was happening. So in the north, let's go to the south. When I tell the south, we're gonna go to Florence, right? And we go back to Italy. This is a very important city, people. Florence. Here we have Maestro del Bigallo. So is that his name? No, we don't know his name. We just know that this was produced in a workshop in Florence, whose master was called Bigallo, right? So this is why you have Maestro del Bigallo. And then you have Madonna, so the child enthroned and two angels. Look at that. They don't look as faithful as those, from the Gothic art, do they? Look at the face. It's just like pure Byzantine style, yeah? And then one of the reasons people would do that is that they didn't want to, to focus on things that are earthly. That's just a symbol. It's just a symbol that should take us somewhere else. This is what they had in mind with this piece of art. So again, you see here the drapery and you see the cloak. They learned with the Greeks. Greeks were important. We can't get rid of them. Well, maybe we can. I don't know. That's hard. But then you have the child enthroned, and you see this as a child because there is, just this golden circle about encircling his head, and that's it. But the fingers are very long. Look at Madonna's fingers; they're very, very long. Doesn't look realistic, dude. This is a symbol, right? And that's it. By the way, nobody gave me money, but visit must be. It's totally worth going to the visit, paying the visit. It's a beautiful museum. You can see their collection online with very good quality, but going to museums is much better. So, well, there you go. Now, the Italians. Pizza, Claudio. You said pizza. They didn't invent pizza, I think. I don't know the story of the pizza. Just know it's good. Pizza is the Italians have square pizza, which is delicious too. Couldn't hold their horses, right? And then the guys in the north, they're just doing beautiful things. I don't want to be behind, do I? I don't want to be behind. And this is what you see. This is where Renaissance starts. Lucas, now, well, you have to tell a little bit of story, right? But this is why we have here Giotto di Bondone. Giotto was a very famous citizen from the city of Florence. And then this is a fresco. This is a different kind of art, right? This means that the walls had recently been painted. And in this moment, just after that moment, you want, to paint, and you have to be very fast. This is why it's called fresco, a fresco in Italian. This is the origin of the word. Now, Giotto was very different, and this is faith in Cappella Scrovegni, or Cappella dell'Arena. It's very different. Look at the statues. You have the idea that they are like a 3D thing, don't you? I mean, they literally are, because, just you can go about it and you can... He managed to do something very similar. There is a statue before your eyes, right? There is a statue before your eyes. You can, the face is very round and the fingers, they're round. And look at the work he did casting shadows on this fresco. It's just beautiful. There was masterwork, right? This was a masterwork to do. Now you have paintings reaching a different moment. In this other side here is just a brief comparison, right, between these two works of art here. So on the left side you have Giotto, it's the Lamentation of Christ, and the other one is the Burial of Christ. Very close moments that we have in history. This is, I don't know if this artist, it was kind of a crony, right, of Giotto. I mean, the same period in history. But if you look at Giotto, there's space among the feet. There's room. You don't see all the men, just, well, here maybe a little bit, but you don't see the men, just clustered in one place. Whereas on the right side, you do see that, don't you? You do see that. So both of them have their beauties. Neither one is better than the other. But Giotto managed, by the work of shadows and then just, making things rounder, and he wanted to portray nature closer to what it is. So this is why this was a revolution that it wouldn't have later on. Let's move forward. In the very same period, dude, I have a bookmark with this painting. It's great. I have to find it. I don't know where I left it. It's probably downstairs. I have to find it. This guy was also a crony of Giotto, and then you have two people, actually, the guys, Simone Martini and Lippo Memmi. This is Annunciation of the Margaret. Now, you see, this wasn't in Florence. This is now exhibited in Florence, but this painter was from Siena, so he was a Sienese. And then you have the Angel Gabriel just in the solemn moment in which he announces to Mary, to Virgin Mary, she's about, she's going to bear the Savior, right? I'm just not going to zoom here, but there is a sentence in this part of the painting, should you want to look at that later. Galleria degli Uffizi has they have a very nice website. It's totally worth paying a visit. But here there's something written. It's Ave Gratia Plena. So it's just, she's a graceful woman, right? And that's it. But what is beautiful about this is the ideas of Giotto are kind of there because there's more room between the figures, right? But they still kind of resemble the Byzantine art, so a little bit. And then you see the angel, he has his hand like that, and that's a token of he's about to speak. He's speaking, and he's holding branch of olive tree. Also, in the middle and under the vaults, you see there was these pointy vaults. They were something created by the Gothics, but they're here now in the south, right? And underneath that, so you have a dove, which is a symbol for the Holy Spirit, right? Which comes in the Virgin, and this is how the Virgin becomes pregnant. Under that, there is this vase. This is no mere vase, because sometimes there are some symbols there that you have to interpret, and that's an as you've seen flower. Have you ever heard of that? As you've seen, that's a flower that for them would represent virginity, and this is it. Now the Virgin is just she's reading. She has a book, so she's maybe cultured. Also, she is like a little aback. Maybe that's a symbol of she's showing she's humble, but also she fears what is happening. Right, so this is important. Okay, let's move forward. Let me sip some water. Thank you. What about now, Lucas? What are you showing us? Yeah, we go back to France just for this very brief moment. Now, it is important to bear in mind that the head of the church had no longer been in Rome, in the city of Rome. Now, it was actually in the city, or maybe they decided, I don't know. Yeah. The head of the church was in the French city of Avignon, right? So, in the Catholic Church was growing and becoming really, really powerful, right? And in these moments, there was a free, transition of arts within realm, so to speak. So, and this is called international Gothic style by historians, right? And then this was made by the brothers Lambourg, and this represents, in the sense here, so this is part actually from a calendar that was presented, and it had been actually commented by the Duke of Berry, and so just showing what would happen in different months of the year, and this is probably celebrating harvest, right? They would celebrate also well, plowing in different seasons there. This isn't religious, is it? So you see fair ladies just riding horses, and then there is noblemen here wearing beautiful blue cloaks with golden parts. But then you look in the background. The background isn't very natural, is it? No, it isn't. So this is something that is going to be solved in a few moments. And then we're just portraying different things. We can maybe think about different kind of arts, and then in this moment, you see, you have what you need to start the Renaissance. Papa Lucas, now. Let's go. It's worth it. The Renaissance happens in the important city of Florence, right? The Florentine were very, very important. And how did it come about? You know, they had Giotto. Giotto was like 100 years before this thing here. And Giotto was a very notable person and knowledgeable person, right? And by the way, he built a bell tower here. This is called Campanile di Giotto. But it's a bell tower. And the Italians knew that they were great. They were great because Rome was the capital of the world, caput mundi, right? And then in this moment here, so they want to find, and they want to go back to the grandeur of the Romans. So one man was really, really into doing that, Messer Brunelleschi. What was his noteworthy contribution to art? This dome here. This church is massive too. Never been there, but if you look at and if you look at the sizes, it's just huge. How can we make so this huge area of the church be crowned with a beautiful dome and have it stand? So Brunelleschi made it happen, right? And then he went south he went to Rome, and then he started studying the ruins and the columns and everything that he can see in this beautiful city. Totally worth visiting. And then he, after having studied all of that, right, and finding all the idea of symmetry and the beauty and the knowledge from the Romans, so he was able to conceive and just spark. There is this flame inside the Italians and the Florentine that want to become great again, right? They do want to become great again. And this starts with Brunelleschi. There is a multiplicity of artists for us to have a look at. I'm going to be brief at Frangelico, right? It's not because he's not important, but I would like to show other guys to you. Now, the Annunciation here, and then you already see some things, right? So there is a sense, so your eye kind of goes, to the room that you see in the back, yeah? And this is called perspective. It's just, this is a threshold for the Renaissance arts that we were talking about, the Renaissance from now, right? And this is just this threshold because figures and tokens, they start to have a better, well, they start looking more realistic, right? Not something that is just like, you remember the Byzantine art, Maestro del Bigallo, right? Or Justinian first? Not anymore. although we still have the same, we have the religious topic here, right? So this is what started happening. Important things here. The red color, this looks pinkish, but it's the reddish color, and it is a token for the earthly realm, whereas the blue is a token for the heavenly one, right? So this is something that they want to show there. And of course, here we're talking about Mary, the Virgin, and red because so she's a woman, and blue because she's with child, and that is who is the savior, right? And his face, well, his representation, right, is here. You see the columns here? Greek columns. Dude, I know what the Greeks and the Romans did. This is very important, right? And here he knows the narrative. So there is Adam and Eve being expelled of the garden. But not only these things, I don't longer want to talk about the tokens exclusively. You see flowers and you see fruits and you see plants, and there is a multiplicity of beautiful things of the nature that is being portrayed there, isn't there? Yeah? This is very important in Renaissance. These are things that are happening. The next maestro, just to use that word, just felt like saying that, you know. But here we have Alessandro Botticelli. This name Botticelli is because his father used to build barrels, right? So Botticelli means in Italian little barrel, and that's why he has his name. Italians are full of nicknames, right? Many Italian surnames and family names, they're related with your city of origin and those things. Well, and then here would be the job. The adoration of the Magi is what we have before us, right? It is important to bear in mind that in this moment of history, there was no interest into depicting things. Although there is a higher interest in reality and showing nature here, so people wouldn't show things happening in a house, okay, or like the private life. This is what I mean. Rather, you have the adoration of the Magi, but man in the scene. So the artists were witty persons, and also were their impresarios. So the people that would just pay them, I'm going to give you money so that you can make beautiful pieces of art. There is the adoration of the Magi, but do not be fooled. We are in the Renaissance. And with Botticelli, we start having some enigmas in the paintings. This is when we also go back to the Greeks and to the Romans with the idea of hermeneutics, right? So that is the Hermes, that's the Greek god of message, and things are encrypted now. This is why we have to study and to know this. The Italians, they would like to go to their villas, right? So beautiful, huge houses. I think you can still visit them there, right? And they would spend days there having feasts and contemplating and studying paintings and all of these things, right? So the clever guys did some things there. I think you have already heard of the Medici family, and they were the people that committed this painting. Now, you have Cosimo il Vecchio, the elderly Impiero, il Gottoso, right? Or gouty. Gout is a disease that was associated with wealthy people because it's also related with eating too much meat, drinking, right? So maybe just the wealthy would be able to do that. So this is why we have this wealthy family here. Lorenzo di Medici, he is the prince. Well, he's the man, to become the next prominent one, because so his relative Giuliano de' Medici was killed because of a conspiration of the Pazzi. Yeah, this is what happened. And then Sandro Botticelli also painted himself there, and then you know that it's him, right? So back then you wouldn't have many portraits. Um, um, notable people and public people like the Medicis, so they would be just um, made known in the paintings and so on, because people wouldn't paint them in private life. You also have Roman columns, so yes, we know where we have come from, and there's a peacock. What is a peacock? Why do you have a peacock there? It's important to know that it's a peacock, and it's important to know that it's a male peacock, and that male's peacock have exuberant tails, but it's just closed. It isn't open, right? And that's a token of Christianity in well, Catholic Christianity, in so to speak, in this time, right? So they didn't want to show extravagant beauty. No, you have to have domain, right? And then if you visit the Vatican museums, you see two huge peacock statues just like that. The tails are not wide open. And then in this moment on, we have a big triangle here. Have a look at that. We have religion, we have art, and we have politics. Botticelli was also famous for showing us and for going back to Greek mythology, Roman Greek mythology, right? So this is called spring. In Italian, they call it primavera, just like we say in Portuguese, right? This is a fair garden. There are too many flowers there. And this is a beautiful lawn with beautiful flowers and everything. What is happening here? Just as we have, there's another famous painting by Botticelli that many people know. It's called La nascita di Venere, or the birth of Venus. And then here's primavera, or spring. In spring, what are the symbols there? Zephyrus and Chloris. Chloris is the cold, bluish winter, right? Who, together with Zephyrus, they have a child. You see Zephyrus, which is like a nymph. So she has a child who's Flora here. So there are flowers coming from the mouth of this nymph, and she has this child Flora, right? So this is what is happening. We read from this from left, from right to left. We also have the three graces there. So there are other nymphs, and they are merrily dancing and in encircling motions, right? Just to show the heat of the hours. So the seasons, they go on, right? And they happen in everything. Whereas there is Hermes, the messenger, and the Greek messenger, Roman Greek messenger in the other sides, right? This person that we have here, politics, Lorenzo de' Medici. Yeah, let's go. We're gonna have a brief look at the Renaissance in the North, right? Jan van Eyck, he was one of the most important persons in this moment. And then here you have something that was not happening in the South. This wasn't common. Private life. So here we have Giovanni Arnolfini. So this man is a wealthy businessman, and his wife was Jeanne de Chenani, or Giovanna Cenanni, and then they're just taking their vows. You have a multiplicity of tokens here that signal to us that this is about private life. You have his shoes, right? And you also have her shoes. And you also have oranges, yeah? And then he wrote. Jan van Eyck was here. He wrote in Latin. I am excited. What about the mirror? Talk about the mirror. Talk about the mirror. Yeah, the mirror, the convex mirror. So, two important, very important things that this man did. First of all, the way painters would portray their work until this moment, it was just they would grind and crush minerals, and they would add egg there. They would add egg. So, but it would dry up too fast, right? Egg would dry up too fast. So it's very, very hard to do very detailed painting like this one. Not anymore. He started adding oil, so it doesn't rise. It doesn't dry up so fast, and this makes it possible for this person to add this myriad of details there. You have too many details, right? The other thing, if you look at the middle of the picture here in the painting, Jan van Eyck was here, an eyewitness, and I witnessed this moment. So this was not very common for people before this man. And then here you have scenes from the Passion of Christ. Another interesting thing, just going to be brief here, is the Swiss Herr Witz, Konrad Witz. What is special about this? Well, pretty much it's special because he portrayed something that you can actually see in the city of Geneva in Switzerland. So there is the Mount Salève there in the background, right? And then there is this lake that you can see in Geneva too. And this moment in the history of Christianity, so you have just the fishermen, they're just obeying Jesus and casting the net onto one side of the boat. So, and then you see Peter just swiftly swimming onto Jesus because he had obeyed his command, and then he had recognized that was his master. Now, these people, the fishermen that you see there, they were common people, right? It's just like you look at that. You go to a mass, you look at that. You look at the painting that would be placed in like maybe a cathedral. That bloke there looks like a guy I know. Yeah, it looks like a dude I know. So this was something that was also noteworthy. So depicting the landscape, right? So you're no longer just focused on. It's not that we're not focused on the story that is being told, but actually we're just making it more vivid. This is what is happening here. Okay. And then people started paying attention to nature more and more. You have this wild hair, and then the turf that were painted by Albrecht Dürer in Germany, right? So, and the Germans and people from beyond the Alps, or Oltre Alpi, as they would say in Italian, they would have experiences in Italy. It's called Erfahrung in German. So they would have this experience of going to the south and learning with all these people and the things that were happening there. And that was very, very important, and he took that to Germany. Now we have a coin. What about a coin? What about a coin? The coin here, so it was just something else that was happening. The problem with the artists is that, well, maybe in a similar way with what we have nowadays, just some of them had some prestige, but others didn't. And there were some people that were, feeling indignant towards that. And one of the guys was called Donato Bramante, right? So he was an architect, and he was lucky because although he was feeling indignant, he met a very, very powerful man that wanted to help and to make this different. And this person was the Pope Giulio del Rovere, the second. So Julius, and Rovere in Italian means oak. He was the Pope back then, and he wanted to build a very, 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 very big church, a very big church, basilica, right? St. Peter Basilica. So this was his idea, but it didn't come to pass. It didn't come to pass because something happened in this moment, right? And the problem that he had was kind of big because there was a monk, well, just converted monk in Germany named Martin Luther. And Martin Luther was just mad. He was just mad at what was happening at the church because they were selling indulgences and saying that, want to go to heaven, dude? Give me money. And the thing here is that the money that was being gathered with the selling of indulgences would be used to build this very, very church. And it was a big revolution in Europe, right? The Reformation of the church. So no, didn't come to pass, right? And then the idea and the project later happened, but not in the way that you see in this coin. Now, in this very moment is when we reach, and we're getting close to finish the live session, is when we have one of the first great painters, who was Leonardo da Vinci, right? Da Vinci was, just like many other artists from the Renaissance, they studied in workshops, and his master was called Andrea del Verrocchio, and in his workshop he learned and he could see how to do things, and he studied nature intensively and started desiccating bodies too. So this is why you have the study of bones and muscles, right? Can you read it? First of all, it's too little. He was left-handed, and then he decided to write from the right to the left. You have to use a mirror to read Da Vinci's work. Da Vinci was a musician. He was an engineer. He was, I don't know, he was a painter. Dude was a painter. So I want this to be very clear to everybody. So just this is important regarding Renaissance. You have perspective in the back here. So there is mathematical order, right? Things started becoming little. If you look from afar, if you look at your window right now, you're going to realize that the things that are far back, they are not only smaller, but the definition is not the same as just looking at something that is right before your eyes, is it? It isn't. So this is what he's doing. So, and the proportions that he does, and then he has here, are just beautiful. And then this is one of the things that he has just, and as many others, mastered. Blue color, red color. You also see this sarcophagus with Greek and Roman tokens. You have the shell. The shell is a token of Christ, right? Of that who is to be. Yeah. And this is why we have the name. It's one of the reasons why we have the name Vieira in Portuguese. Anna Cristina just reminded you that's your last name. So this is very, very interesting. So sfumato, and then this is just varnish that he would apply. He would apply varnish to the paintings. So as you go far from it, it loses definition. We're gonna have a look at this girl here. Yeah. Why is she so famous? Just want to know that. Just answer this and let's move on. Her name is Mona Lisa La Gioconda because her husband was called Francesco del Giocondo. And then this is why she's called either La Gioconda or Lisa, because that was her name, Lisa Gherardini. And Mona is like short for spouse or moglie in Italian, right? Now, it is very difficult to look at her and not to think, I don't want to look at you. I've looked at you for 500 times, even more. in my lifespan, too much. Yeah, then it's hard to understand a little bit of her, but it's just the technique that he applies here. So sfumato, and you see the outlining of her face, it is not very well defined. It is not very well defined. So you have this notion, very interesting notion, that it's a living being. And you have that notion that she's a living being, because it makes her come alive somehow. It's just very, very interesting how Leonardo puts that together. Just going quickly to towards the end, and then here you have another very important master, Michelangelo Buonarroti. He considered himself more a sculptor than a painter, although he painted the Sistine Chapel in Rome, right? But the way Michelangelo did his things was just different, because Michelangelo wanted to sculpt the idea. So what you see there, although it's not that this guy, again, it's not that this guy doesn't know how to do something realistic. It's just that he wants to, it's the lamentation of the death of Christ, right? But Jesus there appears to be sleeping, not dead. And then you have the Lady Madonna, which is just sorrowful. But somehow this isn't too sad, because the idea, and this is what Michelangelo does, he wouldn't have a sketch, well, he wouldn't have an idea, a sketch, a sculpture, idea, right? This is what you look here, because it is the beauty of the death of Christ that saved the world, right? And this is why all the feelings and the things that are happening here are just concentrated in one idea. Raphael was also super important, and here you have how the idea of perspective here is taken to its limits. This is in a room in the Vatican, it's called stanza. And then, although Raphael could paint religious art, and he did, and this is in the Vatican, we have a multiplicity of Greek philosophers and figures here, right? So he was just showing that he knew the architecture of the ones of old, right? You see statues, and then you see Plato and Aristotle. The truth, no. So very beautiful piece of painting that takes, this has too many details. Then he painted himself there, Raphael, and you have Michelangelo there too. Michelangelo was in the same time working in the Sistine Chapel. And then we have come to the end. This is just to show you guys briefly how art looked like. So, La Scuola di Atene, the School of Athens. This was like 400 years before Monet. And then this is much closer to our reality. What is painted there? Are there tokens just like the ones of old? Is there things to decipher? No, it's just what you see. People just having a good time by the seashore. Maybe this is a lake, and beautiful green and everything. C'est la vie, right? And then this is what we have close to now. Guys, thank you very much for today's session. Claudio, if you want.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you very, very much. It was a great journey through beauty and history. I really enjoyed. I hope that everyone has enjoyed it too. So let me only make some comments here. Thais, our fellow teacher Thais, she liked the statues. They are very realistic, and she mentioned your Italian accent. Your Italian accent is very good, yeah? Very good in Pizza Day.
È troppo difficile, ma...
So we had other comments that we couldn't read in the beginning, that Elisa likes eggplant pizza. Elisa, what kind of pizza is eggplant? I like eggplant, but eggplant pizza, I never tried this.
That's good.
also like the eggplant pizza, as well as zucchini pizza. I've never had zucchini pizza.
It's great.
And Isabel goes to the traditional margarita.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anyone who doesn't like margarita. So that's it, guys. Lucilia, too. Let me mention Lucilia. Lucilia is from our binational center. I'm not sure if it is Uberlândia or Patrocínio. Lucilia, sorry. But it's there around the Triângulo Mineiro. So, Lucilia, thank you. The prestige. And guys, thank you very, very much. That was one more webinar from our Friday Live series. We will have more. Let's see the next one. It's a surprise to you. We are still preparing. And again, thank you very, very much. Lucas, congratulations, and thank you very, very much too. Victor was operating the technical devices. Thank you very much, Victor Rochelle, our teacher too.
Victor.
And that's it, guys. Thank you very, very much. Have a nice weekend. Protect yourselves, please. Stay home. Use your masks and be safe. Bye. See you in the next webinar.
Bye-bye.